Welcome, everyone. This is our AACG meetup, our Friday meetup for August the 28th, 2020. I guess I need to say that. And we are really thrilled today to have Duncan McClellan and Mary Childs and the Duncan McClellan Gallery, who are presenting Rik Allen and Shelley Muzylowski Allen. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Duncan McClellan.
Well, thank you, Marilee. And I want to thank everyone for being here today. The AACG has been absolutely wonderful to DMG's school project. And I wanted to thank all of you again for the generous grant you gave us. We have been expanding our hot shop. We are doing some new exciting filming capabilities, and we're doing even more outreach, getting prepared for the time that we can. We're really excited about today's program. They're dear friends. I have enjoyed seeing their studio, and I know you will as well. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Mary Childs, our art director, and take it away, Mary. Mute.
Thanks, Duncan. It's so nice to see everyone. It's been wonderful to share these sessions with you all every week. And thanks to AACG and Marilee for continuing to put this all together. As Duncan said, Rik and Shelley are dear people. And as you all know, I'm sure they're extraordinary artists. And it's been our pleasure to work with them for many years and also to help them put this presentation together and share their lives and their work with you. We'll know you'll enjoy what they have to share. And I think I'm getting a message from Rik. And Rik, are you there somewhere?
Yeah, Mary, AACG, I'm really sorry. I'm running a little late. I was on the Kessel run, and there was traffic, and the CX5 went supernova. So I'll be there pretty soon, but I'm gonna let Shelley take it from here if that's okay with you guys. And I'm gonna put the pedal to the metal, but I'll be there pretty soon. Okay.
All right, get back safely.
All right, thank you. See you soon. Sorry about that.
That's okay. We'll have to rely on Shelley to start the program then. And I think she's here somewhere. Shelley, are you on Earth?
Yes, I'm here.
All right.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having us. While we're waiting for Rik to come back, I'll just take you over to the studio and show you my morning commute. This is an arbor in which we have a beautiful lavender wisteria. Gardens. Our vegetable garden, which has expanded considerably since the onset of the pandemic. And this is a building that we started last October, and it's just finished now. It's a new studio for Rik. And behind me, we have our house, which was, well, it's over 100 years old now. Oh, such a beautiful day. We live in the Pacific Northwest. We're about 15 minutes by car from the ocean. We're just outside of a logging town called Cedar-Woolley. We're on a corner lot. We have 5 acres. More gardens back there surrounding the house. We have an assistant's cabin just on the right-hand side. A lot of our assistants come up from Seattle, so we want to have a place for them to spend the night if we work consecutively days. Here's our hot shop. And my studio is just around the corner. That's my commute. This is my studio. place where I start and finish my work. I draw and I paint, or I sit and think, tie. This is where all the parts are. I wanted to talk to you about a couple of pieces that I'm working on right now. This is a almost life-size stag head reflection. It's an engraved grawl with its reflection, and they will end up having, it will be a vertical piece, and they will have horns attaching the two. This is a horse head that will be a wall piece inspired from the horses of St. Mark's Cathedral in Venice. My rock collection. I use some for bases and some are for color inspiration. I just love looking at them though. And this is my father's rock collection. He was a geologist. So these are his prizes that he collected throughout his career. Each one has a story. And although he's retired, he would be more than happy to tell you it if you ask him. Some vessels waiting for finials. A leaping red fox. This is an engraved grawl. I quite like this character. It's a water piece. It will be a swimming horse. The head remains to be made. It will be more opaque in order to illustrate how the body is submerged underwater. These vessels with the water ripples were made at the Henry Ford Museum during my residency. I've been making these small animals since the onset of the pandemic. They end up being finials on the reeds of this vessel that's coming out of the water. And the interior will have either a sculptural element or the surface will be sandblasted. I'm still trying to decide the best way to finish this. More small parts made during the onset of the pandemic. As I couldn't have an assistant come in and work with me, I still can't. I had to find a way to work in the hot shop. So I made these small pieces. Manageable if you're working on a rhinoceros. He may be on top of one of those vessels. Small leaping bunnies. I imagine there'll be parts to a whole eventually. Polar bears. There are some parts that are still waiting for me to be able to work again and finish them. A few horse heads, ears. And this dough, still in process. It's been sitting here for a couple of years now as I'm trying to figure out how to finish it. It's an engraved grawl. That's how I got all the detail on there. Layers and layers of powder that I removed with a diamond Dremel. It's a pretty good scale. Those ears are about 8 inches in length.
Shelley, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the sound is really terrible. You're very difficult to understand.
How is that now?
Much better.
I'm sorry that caused me to lose my spot there, but we'll continue on.
It's much better.
I was going to say the
Okay,
sound is muffled because it's from a video. She'll be live in a minute. So just be patient, please.
What? I don't know how to go to it. Yeah, but then I can't.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for
Because I'm
having us.
trying to
We're waiting
get to
for
the.
Rick to come back. I'll just take you over to the studio and show you my morning commute. This is an arbor in which we have a beautiful lavender wisteria.
If you enlarge it, you can move the time bar up, I believe, Shelley.
A vegetable garden, which has expanded considerably. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having.
Yeah, got it. Sorry, guys. That kind of threw me off there when I tried to change the audio, but I'll get back to it.
We don't mind seeing your work again.
Well, you're very kind.
I love that fox.
Oh,
That's
that's
gorgeous.
Duncan. That's the first fox. He's not quite finished, but hopefully soon. All right, there we are, right? We just finished
Yes,
there, I think.
yes.
Sorry about that. I didn't realize my audio was echoing.
And this Joe, still in process. It's been sitting here for a couple of years now as I'm trying to figure out how to finish it. It's an engraved scroll. So I got all the detail on there, layers and layers of powder that I removed with a diamond Dremel.
Can't hear you.
Good scale. Those ears are about 8 inches in length. But I imagine it coming out of, like popping its head out of a field of glass flowers and grass. So I'm still trying to figure out how.
Shelley, you're going to have to stop your share and reshare and make the sound come through your computer. I don't know if that's going to mess up your video again. So you might just want to talk over it because right now we can't hear the audio. We can just hear. I know. Sorry.
Sorry, you guys. What? Okay. It says I'm on the computer audio. Audio. All right, I'm turning it way up. Let me know how this sounds.
Hi, everybody. Thanks.
You're not sharing your screen though.
Oh, okay.
I do have, okay.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having. It's been sitting here for a couple of years now as I'm trying to figure out how to finish it. It's an engraved scroll. That's how I got all the detail on there. Layers and layers of powder that I removed with a diamond Dremel. It's a pretty good scale. Those ears are about 8 inches in length. But I imagine it coming out of, like popping its head out of a field of glass flowers and grass. So I'm still trying to figure out how to actually, what the engineering of that will take. Over here I've got the emerald hippocampus. From a few years ago, I made a series of these. I made them after I had worked with Davide in Murano, but I'll talk about that more when we go into the other room. I've also been painting, which is something to keep the ideas flowing and my hands busy. That's been really fun to go back to the medium. I made a few still lives of things we had around our house, like Japanese tin toys and cherry blossoms. I'm also painting from some of the scenes I see on my walks. All right, let's go into the next room. Oh, here is Octopus Man that I made with Davide in 2016. It's just neat.
Shelley, for some reason we
Just
lost
needs
you.
a stand. I'm not sure why it's not finished yet. Maybe because it's so heavy, I can't pick it up. Okay, here's our gallery space, which sometimes doubles as a packing space. Here's another hippocampus. This is the largest one that I made. This one is called Chariot, and it's a glowing, translucent amber interior, so it's got quite striking coloration when the sun goes through it. It's also engraved. Perfect time to look at this piece. Look at how the sun's igniting the body. I really love the stone too. It's just been compressed with such force that you see the layers of sediment. The surface is still sandy, but Rik polished the side of this for me, so it's got a really nice kind of gleam to it. These hippocampuses really represent to me the mystery of the ocean, what we don't really know about it. This piece is called Gray into Blue, and it's another engraved brawl. The head is blown on this in order to be able to get more details, and the surface on this is really nice and textural. The glass powder was fused, and then I actually picked it up with tools and placed it on the surface, as well as rolled up a powder pattern. And it's on a piece of glacial green quartzite. Here we have the mill, bunch of bunnies on a wheel. I just thought I wanted to make something that was just fun, something that would move, maybe make people laugh. It's from a few years ago now. This piece is called Breaking Surface. It was made at the Museum of Glass. It was put together entirely hot, using most of their team to create it. The slab of transparent glass, it's actually pretty thick, and it was poured onto the marble, and I used a copper pipe in order to kind of press in the water ripples. The head's blown, and you can see it's got a really gorgeous turquoise interior that's coming through right now as the sun's hitting the piece. This was one of my first water pieces. The idea behind it is moving from one medium into another, this being water into air. I was thinking about the ideas of transformation and impermanence and how volatile both of those states are. Go over to the hot shop. I know Rik will be speaking more on these pieces. On this side of our gallery, we have my netski pots that were made at the Museum of Glass. They were made in reference to the Japanese toggle, the Japanese kimono toggles. The focus was to show the gesture and to place in a position of reverence the commonplace animals we would see on our property. I made a series of 14 of these pieces. They're quite large scale. A lot of them are tied with leather. I particularly like this piece. It's called Catch. And you can see there's a series of fish hanging and one is missing. That's Pepe. And here is our hot shop. And our furnace. As you can see, the furnace is cold, but we can take a look at the glass in the bottom. Grizzled. The crucible's still in great shape though, so we're thinking of maybe firing up in the next couple of
That is so awesome.
Okay, we're going to check in and see if Rik is back yet. Thank you, guys. I'm sorry about the audio problem at the beginning.
Shelley, you're perfect at everything, so we'll give you a little slack. Welcome back, Rik.
Thank you.
Okay, there we are.
Rik, you're not sharing your screen if you think you are.
Okay, here we are.
Well, it was a nice landing. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate you having us both here. Sorry about I was late. It was really quite a mess out there, but glad to be here in quiet Cedro Woolley. Nice, pure, natural oxygen and all. It's feel good for the brain. Anyway, I just wanted to start off by talking a little bit about Shelley and I in our little compound here. We live and work together. We share a hot shop, cold shop, all the studios, and have a nice life here out in the country. And we've had a little opportunity at times to collaborate a little bit. We're always collaborating in life, whether it's gardens or structures or artwork. It is something that I treasure. So Shelley's been my co-pilot in life, and so this seemed to be an appropriate image. This is just wanted to show one little collab that we did a couple of years ago that's not available, unfortunately, but it is, I think, a real prize cherry. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. I could start going on and on about my relationship with Shelley in our world here together, but you'll probably see Shelley's right over my shoulder there. You'll see me weeping a little bit, and nobody wants to see that. So we'll keep this upbeat, and it would be happy tears. So anyway, I'm going to play a couple little videos here, and because I started off as a cold worker, and it's seldom when we have actual physical tours here talk about the cold shop, because it's small and it's intimate and a little damp, but I'll just talk about the relationship of our.
I want to give you a little bit of a introduction to a part of our studio that's pretty central to everything we do. It's been a big part of both Shelley and I's work, and it's been a big part of my career, is the cold shop. This shop, Cold Shops, as most of you do know, is a place where we cut glass, grind glass, polish glass, do a lot of things that don't involve the hot chop. And since Shelley and I do a lot of work, whether it's evident or not, we do a lot of work where we're taking parts apart, and we
Can you turn up the sound?
Cutting off components and adding them to the other components in the hot shop. Some of this stuff that we do in here is very simple. It's cutting off punties like this on this Shelley's beautiful little hippo, and we take these parts off, grind them down, smooth it out so it looks like it never existed, and then we acid etch them, and then they get a liquid treatment for Shelley's work, and that's the kind of more basic stuff we do in here. Other things would be cutting off components, like I said, grawl engraving, where we may take a grawl blank, something as simple as something like this small piece of glass. We can drill holes in this. We can cut slashes in them. We can cut them in half. We can do all different kind of engraving and decorative work on these. Pick them back up in the hot shop, either out of a kiln or a garage, and either blow into them or add them to a piece. The traditional grawl type working, you can pick this up on a collar of a pipe and you'd blow out that form, like I did much of the time working for Bill Morris, doing elaborate engravings for him and for the studio work. I actually have an example here. Take something like this component, and just as smooth, and I just cut these little slashes in, and put this back into the kiln. Gets picked up on the end of the moil neck and blown out to whatever it needs to be. And that how much of that pattern stays the way it is all depends on how hot and how much blowing is involved afterwards. With the punties, you can see that I try to do what I can to carve down around these marks and then smooth them back to the original finish, which is, there's a thin layer of glass on the outside that you can tear off if you're not too careful. And you can see this is an example of one of Shelley's grawl pieces where she has made a blank, a simple, basic kind of form that's, horse-esque, and will engrave away the color where she knows this pattern's going to go, and using her beautiful illustration styles and skills, she can integrate that into the glass, pick this whole thing back up, blow it out to a form like this, and then you have that nice kind of furry detail eye details that are, not too easy to get in just the hot shop. So it's a pretty fantastic technique. Other things that we do in here just will be cutting glass in half or parts of it off in the saw, and we'd be flattening it out on the lap wheels, which many of you are probably familiar with. And like I was saying, for a lot of my work, I like thinking of things as parts and then put them together, whether it's through the epoxy process or if it's in the hot shop. And the hot shop gives you the beautiful effect of taking something that's very straight, like a tube, and cutting it up into parts and add it to your rocket ships, for example, if you were to make something like that, and make them into little engine ports, which is a favorite thing that I do. So.
Yeah, so this would be the front of the piece. The nose would come off this direction.
All right.
So this is a great piece that we're seeing now that has been sent to the Imagine Museum in St. Petersburg.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, just turn it a little bit towards that way. Yeah, right there.
So you wanted to
yeah, just kind of roughly
nose
over
off there?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that looks good. Yeah, I love how that iceberg looks like it's melting. Yeah. It's got some cool blues in there in the shadows. That was really fun to make and heavy. Yeah, that looks great, Rik. I think that's a good direction.
All right.
Oh yeah, can I see it from that side too? Oh yeah.
All right. Well,
yeah.
Let's do some cold fusion.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
And Rik, is this the piece that, oh, here he is.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that was.
I want to give you a little bit of.
Yeah, that's the piece that Shelley just sent to the Imagine Museum. And you have a title for that? We have an image for it, I think, at the end, do we? No, maybe not. All right.
No, just that image, yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible and heavy. Anyway, well, since I already see that some of you guys are falling asleep with my droning voice here, I'm going to take you out of the cold chop, which I know I am one of the few people that find cold chops exciting. However, thank you for tolerating that. So while we were in the, during the shutdown and pandemic, we were kind of stuck to our resources. We've really not really left the compound. So we got out.
Well, let's see. Get it out of here quick. Okay. Oh, yeah, need tomatoes. Oh, chef's cut. That sounds good. Still out of toilet paper.
We did find toilet paper on Beta 7. So,
and he did go out in public like that too, seriously.
Yeah. It was, who says you're too old to be a goofball? Anyway, I want to show a little video. We just built this brand new studio, and it is, we're just finishing it up, and just the last little bits are going on right now, but we've been already moved into this to some degree. And this has been my new sculpture studio. And this appendage here was a bus stop from the Washington County Western Agricultural So tomatoes and lots of the design of this studio was to be able to make large scale with a 12-foot door in the front and another door out the back, and goes back there as my original studio. So I've been here, the garage is my studio. This big open space currently is being a photo studio. the plan originally was to put machines in there so I can build larger scale sculptures like this guy. This is Salish Sojourner. This is about 9 feet tall, and I do really enjoy making stuff large. This is Seeker, which is 15 feet tall. So the ceilings in this building are about 22 feet high. It's a nice, narrow, tall building that will be built well. The central area will be more. Shelley and I are working on a mission. I'll tell you about that in a second. But that I just photographed myself and sent to the Imagine Museum. These are all brand new and arrived there, I think, 2 days ago. This is a large scale, 37 inch piece, I believe. I'll talk about that piece in the end here. So there, and also those 4 pieces from Lanny Berger and I's collaboration, which I will also talk about a little bit more in a sec. It turned out beautifully, and yeah. So this space, Shelley and I, we are working on a large scale sculpture. They're pretty sizable. About all. They're just around the upper deck here, the terrestrial view of the property here, all our place. You see the hot shop across the field there, and our little deck has become a little nightcap spot here. And from our little Zen space I have above, I can look down in the studio, yell at workers if I need to, whatever I got to do. It's just a gorgeous little spot that we built, and being able to take in the whole of our property and gardens and orchard and the studio and all that has just been fantastic. We've lived here. So if we ever make a physical tour, you'll get to see this when you come here. But the garden has exploded in quite large and second jobs, especially since the pandemic. So we are all right. And so I'm going to jumping right ahead to the collaborative work. Duncan and Mary have a number of pieces at the gallery here, and I just wanted to give you an introduction to Lanny, who in his work and the work we've done together, because it is quite special. It's unique. I'll let me do the talking here.
I wanted to specifically talk to you about a little bit of the work that I've been doing with the artist Lanny Bergner. He was a local guy. We've become friends over the years, a guy who I've met because I admired his work so much, and we got to talking one day, and we were really curious about one another and each other's work, and maybe trying to do something together. Lanny makes, I will show slides of Lanny's work, but he makes beautiful all mesh sculptures, mostly metal mesh, and does a lot of he works in a pretty unusual way and is able to even color the metal in really nice ways, and as you'll see in the images. But when we got together, Lanny started pulling these forms together, and they've evolved over the last few years, where he's quickly turned made these incredibly beautiful forms. These are bronze mesh, and woven together in panels and holes worked into the mesh, and then we hold these and blow the glass into these little cages, and then they would stay on there because this is a bronze, it's basically copper. It's compatible with glass, and every time we blew into these things, we learned something new, and we got different effects like this one here. We started noticing that if the panel had the form had more mesh on one side, it would tend to curve. So we started these curved forms like this one. And, you know, we kind of worked at these forms for the most part to kind of see what happened and then take it from there and just sort of finish the piece in the way that would seem to be appropriate. And a lot of them turned out to be anemone, slug, squid-like forms. And maybe that's the nature of us both, Lanny and I, both being gardeners and, you know, enjoy the maritime Pacific Northwest quite a bit. So that comes to mind, and these forms just kind of come out of that. So, just the forms, you almost don't want to blow into them because they're so pretty, really quite beautiful. And what often happens, you know, if depending on the orientation of the holes and the form, it will move in ways that we won't predict, and there's a little bit of like just the unknown, which makes these very exciting to work. Some of the forms are more, we call it, it is very exquisite chicken wire. Lanny makes these incredible forms that have that kind of crosshatch pattern, and the holes vary in size. And so you get this beautiful like seed cone or like pineapple-like form that's really quite beautiful. And combined with these open round areas, it's really quite, they are all just stunning and such a pleasure to see and work with Lanny and to see how these come to life, and they always surprise us. You know, a lot of what we started with were these small, really beautiful little forms. They're very simple. Basically, you know, have a little blob of or a little tube of glass, and we'd slide this little collar over it and then blow it out and get these just gorgeous little forms. And this has been scavoed to give it a little chew. And so this is some of just a little variety of things that Lanny and I have made together over the last few years, and I just love them all. This is the pineapple-like form that I had mentioned before. Some of these are scavoed. I seem to still feel the strong desire to scavo things. It's my anthropology background, but little age and little chew on them looks great. This form right here has a nice little example inside there. It's so hard to see in this light, but there's a sphere of mesh suspended in there. Now here's another form that Lanny and I did together. This is sort of a part of a series that we've done a few pieces over the last few years of the chandeliers, one of which is down at the Imagine Museum in Florida. This being the upper body of a kind of squid-like form, and would have these tentacle-like appendages coming off the bottom of the chandelier. At least at this point, that's what that is going to be. But I absolutely love this, and I just really love how the form kind of moved with the glass as it was blown into the mesh. And you can see the crackle form in the glass kind of distorts, gives a little bit of a little reflection. The outside has got the little crackle all through it, being quenched. The interior having little bits of gold and whatnot, so it's got just a nice little sparkle, little organic quality to it that I really enjoy.
Rik, we had a question about what is scavo.
Oh, scavo. Scavo, well, the word is an Italian word, means basically excavate or dig up from the earth. So scavo is a compound that you apply to the glass while it's hot, and it basically starts breaking down the glass. It leaves it very rough. It starts chewing around, devitrifying the surface, and leaves deposits. Sometimes Scalpo has metal oxides in there that'll leave kind of white spottiness to them. That basically gives it gives glass an aged look. And there, for a long time, the formulas were all top secret, and no, Venetians would have to be executed if they told anybody what is in there. But it is simply, it is actually parts of silica and whatnot in the glass that I have my own formula for. But it's fun to use. A little toxic, but it's worth it. Shave a couple of years off your life for a beautiful surface. Why not? So anyway, and I just did a little short video. I didn't have we didn't have a hot furnace, so I thought I'd do a little montage of hotness in our studio. And our beautiful furnace is the heart of our. So that's the surface, how I got the surface on the piece that is at the Duncan's Gallery in Florida. And that's how I get that surface with that quenching. So a little insight to that piece.
A question about Lanny, does he live close by?
Yes, he does. He's actually originally from Anacortes. He went to school at Tyler in Philadelphia, and then graduate school at the sculpture program in UW, and relocated with his wife in Anacortes. And is a very quiet, sweet guy who just is very prolific and the scale on all those pieces. I showed a little bit of his work. They are fairly large. He does work. I envy the fact that he can make large pieces and then just carry them around without backaches and ship them without like massive amounts of packing material. But yeah, he does fairly large panels. The one with that sort of butterfly form was, I think, about 6 feet long. All right. So I have a relationship, which I will speak about a little bit more at the end of my talk, but this is just wanted to touch on where some of my work has been more. I spend a lot of time on the water. I'm a kayaker, I'm a boater, I'm a swimmer. I love the water. It's a part of me. Shelley and I are both out in our boat quite often. A few years ago, I had the opportunity to go with a research crew out into the Salish Sea, which is the sea that extends from Puget Sound up into Canada. And we were doing some surveying and sampling, and learned a lot about phytoplankton and their role in this massive role for this tiny, tiny little creature. And started looking at phytoplankton, and they're just like, whoa, those are like spaceships to me. Like, that's what I saw, of course. But beautiful, gorgeous, lots of variety and forms, and they're so essential to our whole ecosystem. So that, oh, and I guess this is my proof that I live on the water here. Yeah, I really live it up here. This is me going to town actually for supplies. Yeah. Okay. This is right after meeting with the researchers and spending a day with them and looking at phytoplankton, I started drawing. and that became the new work direction, with the ship sort of segueing a little abstract, a little surreal, but these forms that had a lot more organic quality to them, and a lot more water. I really wanted the water to be a part of my work, since it's so important to me.
Rik, we have a couple of questions. I hate to bother you, but one is, can you tell us about the modern rocket men who collect your work? And the second one is a technique. When you plunge the piece into cold water, how can you be certain it won't break up completely?
Okay, I'll take the second question first. Quenching the piece in the water is you get the glass very hot before you go in there. It's not evident in the videos, but the glass is pretty warm through and through. And then I go in quite quickly, and it crackles the outside. And sometimes it may penetrate all the way through, but you go back into the glory hole, you reheat it until it's nice, and the crackles have basically melted in. But I would never go into the water with cold glass, because we've learned that doesn't work. So we end up with beautiful things for our garden. So yeah. And then the second one, modern day rocket people who collect our work. I have been fortunate enough to be in the collections of the Bezos family, and as well as Elon Musk, and which led me to be able to do cool things for them, as well as visit SpaceX and Blue Origin, and go to real rocket labs where people are meeting and making real rocket ships, and incredibly exciting. And also I've been toured by with Roger Myers, who's on this talk, who's gave me a tour of his facility, and where they're making real rocket engines and all sorts of great things there. So I've been very fortunate to have the attention of a number of real rocket people, and get tours of their spaces. So as well as Paul Allen, when he is now deceased, but he is part of the program as well. So that was also very cool. So getting back to this stuff, this is just what the Salish Sojourner is about 9 feet tall. Obviously, water is inspired by herons, so it's spaceshipy sort of heron. And I'm going to do a quick little.
Big part of what's in my studio is more than just the tools and the materials to provide me with the everything I need to assemble work. I also just collect things, and sometimes they do end up in work. And a lot of artists, like myself, like to collect things for just because they're interesting and beautiful, and they might be just little items of junk or little doodads that we've made over the years that we really liked and used for other things. I feel that the studio is a place where, for me, surrounding myself with the things that I love, either the things that I have made myself that I really enjoyed, or just objects that I find in junk shops, junk yards, piles of garbage. I really like to just have them around, and some of these things have been around in my studio for 20 years, and I can't part with them. But they surround you, and they kind of inform you of what you do, what you're interested in, and kind of just gives you a firm ground to stand on in your studio that has your history, your love, including the gifts that people have given you over the years, the projects you're working on currently. Maybe you started them 10 years ago, and you're still working through that, and that changes over time. I find that it is a real asset to have your old work kicking around. There's a point where you just got a clean house, but there are pieces that you feel like they just weren't going the way you wanted them to go when you were first working on them, and so you bail. But there's something about it that you want to keep, and having it around, whether you actually finish that piece or not, that process brings you somewhere new. And I find that sometimes I just look at something is not quite right. I put it on the shelf, the patina just gets better and better. And I take it off the shelf and I make a piece of work out of it. And I think, wow, I cannot believe that this thing has been sitting around that long and I have not figured out what to do with it, because this is so incredibly beautiful. And so that's probably my most favorite moments in the shop here. Often be working with Jeremy in the metal shop and be jamming on something that would just really take me. And it was just so fun to see that part to go together. But when we're here in my private space, I'm just doodling and looking at my things and just getting ideas and rolling with whatever it is, whether I'm going to make new things, go out and find new things, or what. Having that energy take off is just the best thing in the world. And I'm sure it's similar with all artists in the world. They're just getting that moment where you really spin out in the zone is really some of the best things about studio life.
So these are just some components that I've put together, and I've only done a little bit of kinetic work, but this is the interior that I built that I had to build, then disassemble into tiny parts. So that piece was was installed into a client's home, and when you activated it by its secret button, which was the door, don't tell anybody that, but that started the kinetic motion inside of the piece, and then when that completed its rotation, the false wall behind that it was attached to disconnected and opened up into a secret passage into his library, which, scored 10A on the nerd scale. It was a fantastic project to work on. So part of my work is that I've installed in many of my pieces, especially my larger works, is I have these little chairs, which I know I've spoken about in other presentations, but they represent a sort of a place setting for people to put themselves inside of the pieces, as well as a kind of symbol of your consciousness looking out. So your seat of your consciousness looking out of the vessel of your body and going out on adventures in these creations. So,
hey, Rik, when did you start making spaceships and why?
I started making spaceships in about 2000, I believe. And a Vetri gallery in Seattle had asked if I would maybe make some smaller things and some functional things, and I wanted to do something. So I started making these two-piece rocket ships that I made a capsule. They were a little rocket with, you could take the capsule off of the rocket and you could put stuff in it. And that was my idea of functional. So it was actually a pretty cool idea. I made a number of them, but I really started loving making rockets. My dad was in the Air Force for almost his whole life. We were introduced to a lot of space-like craft. My father was pretty involved with the engineering and fighter jet type engines and stuff. The stuff was always around us, and also being as a kid, I was 10 years old when Star Wars came out. Love science fiction, so it was just really, really deeply a part of me. And so when I started making these little rocket ships, I just fell in love with them, and I felt like I needed at that point take a turn with my work, and that just developed from there. And I just still love it very much. As you can tell, I'm super mature about it all right now. I can't seem to stop putting on spacesuits. But anyway, and the ladders are part of these things. They kind of ground this piece, and you have a little visual narrative that can bring you up into the piece. So and some of these are the titles of the ocular pieces are kind of proprioception sculptures, so imagining your perception of the world. The sphere on that has been cold cut and picked back up and worked. This is a new piece for the Imagine Museum. I've got some weird name for it, I can't remember. And another chair piece that was sold at Duncan's Gallery. And then this last piece is at also I just sent down to the museum, this is, my mom passed in the fall, and I wanted to make some tribute to her, especially since it was going to a museum. So I kept this, the one thing I got from my mom's house was this rocking chair. So I put the rocking chair in this piece and titled it Isabel. So there you go. I knew I'd get choked up, but anyway, okay. So Shelley's gonna join me here, and we've got some work that we're gonna talk about. Some of these pieces are at this piece is at Duncan's Gallery, and this is another collaboration with Lanny Bergner and I. It's another sea anemone type form, blown glass. This is, oh yeah, the actual height's here. It's almost 20 inches tall. Squid. Yeah, go ahead.
I have another question from one of our attendees, and this is for Shelley. Shelley uses hair for her horse's tails. Why hair instead of glass? Is it real hair, horse, human, or other, or synthetic?
Hi. Yeah, it is real horsehair. I get it from a ranch in Montana. She washes it for me and bundles it, and I just order a palette of colors from her. So each piece has mixed hairs in order to bring out the color of the glass. The reason I use real hair is because I love the idea of just the contrast of the soft with the hard, the hair versus the glass. I think it brings out the inherent beauty in each material. And I have used human hair too, depending on the scale of the piece. I made some small pieces in which I had to use human hair just in order so it'd be proportional. And I had an assistant who kindly donated me her ponytail once. So that's on a piece that I believe is in New York City. Yeah, I just really love the idea of just making the piece have as many contrasts of material as possible. It's just more of a really visual, a tactile experience.
This piece is actually made of 7 different parts that were hexed together. These are some fractal forms that we're playing around with. Yeah, super fun, a little difficult to put together, but I think the result was stunning. Another squid. You'll see a lot of squid with this form. I don't know, every time we blow into these forms, we both kind of like, yeah, squid works. So. And I mentioned this piece before here. Both Lanny and Shelley and I all have are gardeners, and we have Lanny has a big lot of land that he runs a pretty good sized garden too. So slugs are a common conversation out here, since we have slugs like I don't know who engineered them, but they are fierce. So also
and disgusting.
Disgusting and at times beautiful, but yeah, more disgusting. But this is a stunning one. This is these are kind of a sea anemone cluster, and those little tubes on the end there, as I described in my cold chop video, applied one at a time while the glass is hot. And so you look down the port, you actually can see the color from inside. They glow quite nicely. And then the upper part of the glass was cut and drilled and then blown into to get the kind of protrusion of color from the inside. Sort of a Grawl technique. This is, I liked it. Some of the big, when I was a kid looking at these gigantic engines that would go into some of these airplanes and have the giant jet engine turbines and cooling fins, was definitely etched in my memory, and wanted to kind of exemplify that a bit. And you're welcome to ask questions as we go here.
Yeah. And as you saw throughout our videos, that we live in we're rural and the natural world is surrounding us. So that's where I largely draw from, is just what I see and experience on hikes and on our property. So these pieces, the pieces that I'm going to show there at Duncan's, and the ones also in the that I've talked about in my studio, they're also all available to, as you saw, some of them are still being completed, but don't hesitate to ask any questions about any of these. These have all have powder roll-ups on them. This is actually an early piece where I first started using powder as texture. But because of my painting background, I just really, I like having layers and layers of color, so that when you look at the piece, you experience it kind of deeper and deeper every time you look at it, or the length of time you look at it, you can see into the piece, as well as using mixed media. This bird of passage piece, the feathers are separate pieces and they're tied on with beads that are wooden and glass. And this actually, it's a life-size piece. This was made, Rik showed you the scene of the migration of the bird. So this piece was inspired from that. We also have the trumpeter swans that migrate through here. So I've made a lot of work based on that experience also. Follow the white rabbit. This, he's a life-size bunny on a piece of stone from Utah. And painter, just more talking about the experience of painting and the fluidity of paint and glass as a material. This was a demo piece that Rik and I made at Duncan's when we were there just last year. I think it was 2018, or actually 2000. When were we there last, Duncan? Was it 2019 beginning?
It was 2 years ago.
Yeah, so this was a lot of fun. Rik made the antlers, and with the team we put it together, and it's 22 inches high, so it's a pretty large piece. The Garden of Ishtar, that was inspired from the Gates of Ishtar, those beautiful blue mosaics. I saw them in a museum in New York, and I was just so blown away that I just had to pick up that color, that beautiful, beautiful lapis color, and use it in a piece. First run, and yeah, both of that, it's real horsehair. We have a lot of horses. People raise horses around our property, so I often get to watch the foals being born and stumbling and, you know, experiencing their first run. So I tried to capture that there. This piece of Crest. The ribbons, everything, so technically this piece was really hard to put together in the hot shop. Fusing the cane, making it so liquid that it would actually act like a ribbon being placed over the piece while it was still on the pipe. It really took some choreography and about 5 assistants. So anyway, these are I've only made a handful of them because of the technical issues with them. So whenever one turns out, I am so psyched. And this piece is called Foreshadow. Once again, just using, that's a really large piece of limestone. And the piece, unfortunately, the photo doesn't show, but there are multiple colors that are hidden within those black stripes. And in the tail, there's also blues and violets, just a few little hairs that I've tied throughout there, just so that you get this kind of subtle surprise of color as you look at it longer. And there's Duncan's. That's here, but does anybody, we'd love to answer some questions and have a chat if anyone has any.
Well, Shelley, I know that you used a person's, let's see, you did a commission for a client and it was of her horse. It was a portrait of her horse and she sent you the hair from her own horse and you incorporated it into the commission. That's correct?
That's right. Yeah. Thank you, Mary, for bringing that up. It was one of your clients who lived in just outside of Toronto, and she was so excited that that I could actually, like, try and make her piece. I tried to capture the spirit of her horse, but she did send me some of the horse hair. She was only able to cut off a tiny amount because it's a show horse. So she didn't want to mess with its tail. So I got this little tiny amount, and then I had to search for hair that would look just like her horse's hair. And I just wove them all together so that it would be kind of continuous. And so she never really knew which was her hair and which wasn't, but it was definitely in the piece in the end. And it was really, for me, it was super special to do that because it just made it so personal for her, and for me to be able to facilitate that, it just meant the world.
She was really happy with it.
I have a question for Rik. Who's in charge of naming?
The little man that lives in my head. I think that's.
You do them all, huh?
I do, yeah.
Good
yeah.
job.
Thank you. It comes from somewhere. Yeah.
Hi, Rik. Yeah. It's Larry Seabrack. Can you hear me? Yeah. So I was wondering, we have a piece of yours that you collaborated with Lanny that we got at Duncan's. And going on Lanny's website, I noticed he does a lot of awfully large architectural pieces. And I wondered if you've thought about collaborating using glass in those pieces with him.
Yeah, we actually just started talking this summer about kind of doing more of that, and we're just trying to figure out how to do that with limited hot shop access at or the state of things at the moment. But we definitely will. The first pieces I saw of his that I think I at the Museum of Northwest Art, and had these beautiful chrysalis hanging pod-like forms that were layers and layers and layers of mesh, and they were incredibly beautiful and translucent like glass, and they had a nice nice quality to it. And we're both talking about trying to figure out how to get more glass in there, maybe combining the mesh loose forms like those large panels and architectural forms, as well as glass components. And maybe more giant squids. I mean, I'm always up for that. So
great.
Did the mesh and the glass help them live outdoors?
They actually, the nice thing with the mesh is the mesh works as sort of a safety net for the glass. So if there was some kind of failure of the glass, the mesh holds it together. So that and an acrylic coating would work fairly well, I would think. So yeah, we're exploring that.
Shelley, it's Dale and David, and you mentioned that adding the cane creates a much more complicated process. And yeah, on your horses. We're curious as to why that is.
Oh yeah, you guys have the
Yes.
So the cane, I make flat cane in order to, when I fuse it, it becomes flat like a tile.
Yeah.
Because of the structure of that is so rigid, and the colors are from color bar rather than powder, that when I put that on top of powder and the sculpted form, the rigidity of it fights with what it's been placed on. It just creates a lot of tension at the join that I've had multiple of them crack. After spending days of making parts and hours in the hot shop, just where the blanket overlaps the horse, starts crizzling and cracking. And also one of the challenges too is because I have one of my assistants who he's amazing because he gets so intense about making something perfect that he brings it over and it's like flapping like a flag. Like it's so hot because we only have like a couple seconds in order to get it from the glory hole onto the piece, stretch, and then make it wavy so it looks like a blanket. So it's such an intense time that often if we're not communicating clearly, we can lose that, like, micro flash of a second, and then the cane gets too rigid and I can't attach it. And then it usually would start cracking at that point too, because it's been overworked. So that's just a couple of the technical difficulties. There's actually a lot more, but.
Thank you. That's interesting. I didn't appreciate that.
And Shelley, we had a question about your animals. Do you ever make African animals?
I have, yeah. I've made some gazelles that have been kind of more based on, I guess, the patterning. They look more African based on the patterning of them. But that I did do a series of antelopes. A lot of them were leaping off of cliffs or onto cliffs. It was my state of mind at that during that year. So yeah, and I've made elephants also. But
did you do some great zebras?
Well, yeah, Duncan has that zebra. Yeah, which I made one with Davide also, a zebra boat, or actually, no, the zebra instrument. And then the one that Duncan has. And I made one other one that I sent to Pilchuck. Yeah, so I've got a handful of those also.
Well, this has been fabulous. Thank you so very, very much. It's a pleasure to see where you live, how you work, inspirations behind your work. So I want to, for AACG and all of our members, thank you so very much. And this is being recorded. It will be uploaded to YouTube in just a little bit of time this afternoon. So thank you so much again, Rik and Shelley and Duncan and Mary. And we'll see everyone next Friday, I hope.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Thank you so much.